Hey everybody, John Spielkel here for Gen AI News Briefing from GAI Insights, rating your news essential, important, or optional. Here we are on a Friday, got lots of new stuff coming out. Got things from Grok, which look pretty impressive. We've got some really nice comparison between A to A and MCP for the agentic protocols. We have Dr. Amanda Fetch, who just accelerated her PhD program and got it done in 3 years. God love you, Amanda. And of course, my colleague Paul and the ever-present Ankaj Handa. All righty, let's go ahead and start up on the first one. We got Ankaj, if you could give us the one for OpenAI Codex here.
Sure, John. So the first one that we have for today is from OpenAI. So OpenAI has launched Codex CLI.
Yeah, and so this is a tremendous good code library. The availability of this capability at the terminal level, if you like interacting, when you're doing your software development with terminal. And I rated this particular one. I was between optional and important. Our friends at GitHub are always adding new capability, but I didn't see this as that essential. What do you think here, Amanda?
I think, Amanda, you're on mute.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute there. Yeah, I think, Dr. John, I'm kind of on the fence with this one, which is pretty typical with me. Between optional and important, because I guess from maybe a development perspective, we should be paying attention here because, again, it's another tool for developers, right? For enabling to pull in the code execution, things like this through NLP, that whole 9 yards. So I guess it's important, but I think I'm more toward optional only because I am seeing a wave, and we've even this week, right, with us going through articles, we're seeing a wave with a ton of different tools that are assisting with code development and everything else of that nature. So I feel like, I don't know that I want to say the market's saturated already and things like this. I wouldn't necessarily go there, but I think we're seeing more and more of it. So I don't know if that then makes it important because it's something to note. But for the typical leader, if they're not a developer, I think, as you're on the fence too, probably optional, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it's that, new either. You okay with optional here, Paul?
Yeah, I just want to highlight, though, this is another example, though, of when ChatGPT 3.5 came out. It was an amazing thing. He had to go to it. He had to go to ChatGPT to get the digital intelligence. Now we're seeing the digital intelligence come to us in so many different ways, through APIs, through Slack. And this is yet another one where you can be at your terminal and just ripping away and getting the intelligence to look at your repo code. So, but optional.
All righty, optional it is. Ankaj, next.
Okay, the next one that we have for today comes from Google, and they have launched Gemini API in Google AI Studio.
Yeah, interesting here. They've pretty good set of demos and things like that. What'd you think, Amanda?
Yeah, so again, this one, because it's development focused, I could be on the fence depending on the leader. So, if you're into the sort of behind the scenes as well, if you're leading a team, I think it's important. I feel like at the same time, though, some of these articles, and this one included, starts to become a little bit of an announcement more than really digging extremely deep into tools and things like this. So I guess I'm kind of on the optional camp for this one.
Paul, how about you?
Definitely optional. It's a product announcement. Yep.
Yeah, it is tool focused. A lot of Me Too capability here as well. Going to give this guy an optional. Alrighty. Next, Ankaj.
Next one comes from Grok. Sorry, my screen just froze. Just a second.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So the next one comes from Grok, and they have launched Grok Studio.
Yeah, I was actually, in Grok Studio, they've got Google Drive support now. It does images, really good in terms of long context windows. I don't know. I was going to give this an essential. I played around with some of the performance is really good. I mean, that's fast. And I thought the things that I was getting out of it were right up there. So I was going to give it as essential as, Grok, I think, has really come in now as something an enterprise can use, and is competitive with the other, foundation models in a strong way. So anyway, I know it's a product announcement and so forth, but that's where I was leaning. But what do you think here, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is more pervasive than some of the other tools here. I think still it's Grok against Twitter. I'm still leaning on the optional side. I mean, it's a B2C play. So few of the companies are discouraging employees from certainly uploading docs to B2C AI hubs like this. So optional in my mind.
What did you think, Amanda? You gonna pull a King Solomon and split the baby here?
I know. Yeah, because I hate to do that. I know. I'm almost like in the middle of the two. This is a tough one because, again, it's another tool. So for me, the whole collaborative environment and then being able to test, run the code and the interfaces, things like this, that to me from a development perspective is always interesting and something to note. But again, I feel like I'm seeing more and more in these tools popping up. So I don't think I'm much help here, Dr. John. I'm probably split down the middle.
That is helpful. All righty. Okay. Well, let's essential, optional, important equals important. All right. There we go. Rate this one important. Next.
The next one comes from VentureBeat and talks about how swapping LLMs isn't plug and play and what is the hidden cost of model migration.
Yeah, this is something that we've been talking to our clients about for some time, that, you don't want model lock-in because there's such dynamism, and that, switching models is not trivial. It goes through some examples of it and so forth. Yeah, what'd you think here, Paul?
This one I was essential. I think for all the reasons you just talked about, John. I think we have to understand that intelligence is very fluid. We have to architect and text switchability. It's non-trivial. There's a total cost of ownership as you switch. But there's also a total cost of lock-in if you don't. So these are things that I would hope most AI leaders know, but they don't. They need to remind themselves and their teams. So essential.
Interesting. I had it as optional because I just didn't think it was a very good article on a really important topic.
We've seen so few of them. I mean, have you even seen another article talking about this, John? I mean, what's the
right? Not many. I don't know, Amanda. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a theme today. I'm split down the middle with important on this one because, yeah, I don't. Yeah, this is a tough one. I don't know that there's a lot of substance either in here, Dr. John. So I kind of agree with Paul a little bit on this, that I just don't think there's a lot in here for the leader to necessarily digest, but we may be another tiebreaker important.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as we look at it, it does talk about, 5 different things which are useful, right? It talks about tokenization variations, context window differences, instruction following, formatting preferences, and model response structure. So I will say that's the first kind of like guidebook I've seen that lays out, what are the things that you care about when you think about model equity. At the same time, there's a bunch of things that we know people are doing that are not in here, such as prompt libraries, such as architecting, the data that you're passing to the models, to be more standardized, across different model structures. So, I mean, there are solutions that we've seen some of our clients implement that are more sophisticated than us. So, I don't know, Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I think it's an important theme. John, we missed those. Also, it doesn't talk about kind of in your trust boundary with premise or VPC or a remote. It also doesn't talk about public or open versus closed. So there's a lot of different nuances, but I remain it's an essential topic here, and Vivek's agreed as well. As essential, I think, for the reasons that it's not talked enough about.
Yeah, and Kevin as well, and talking about the political uncertainty, right? That, oh my goodness, we don't like France, so goodbye Mistral, right? Certainly the Chinese models. All right, essential it is.
I mean, it's already ripping my head. Another nuance here is, are you doing model switchability within your same hyperscaler? So, as you think about that, even your supply source of hyperscaling is an important factor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that I'm less worried about that if you're working in those hyperscaler environments, because a lot of them have the model management layer where you can, move across different models, whether it's Vertex or Bedrock and so forth. And but this one, this one about going to different models themselves.
And sorry, one last one, John. So there's two parts of it to me. I'll see if the audience agrees. One is the switchability, Amanda, of the actual AI intelligence. We also see this explosion in AI routing. So the orchestration layer, so have you chosen the same orchestration layer? Or are you getting locked into AI orchestration, which may have a bias or a particular predisposition to a model?
Absolutely. All right. Essential it is. Next.
Okay, the next one comes from Microsoft and talks about the new computer use feature in Microsoft Copilot Studio.
Yeah, really interesting. They're adding this capability of basically any interface, as long as you have a graphical user interface, now becomes a data input, if you will, navigable by the Microsoft Copilots. What do you think, Amanda?
I think for me, I see what you're saying. It's a new development for them, things like this. But I think this one's very product announcement-y for me, so I say it's optional.
Yeah, also kind of me too. I mean, there's other folks who have this capability. What do you think, Paul?
Optional, definitely optional.
Yeah, optional it is. All righty. That was an easy one. Next and last, Ankash.
Yes, the last one that we have compares MCP to Google's A2A.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, I was going to give this absolutely an essential. I think this is a very nice job of going back and forth. I think that A2A is actually going to subsume MCP unless MCP, they probably will, responds with things like security, and also more description of what the actual agents do. Another interesting thing that I think A2A is not only better in terms of the ability for an independent agent to not be related to a server, right? Because the MCP server client relationship is kind of a client server relationship, but the A2A protocols, because they have the description of the capabilities and the security layer, and even the ability for the agents to influence how the presentation layer works for clients, which I think is going to be super important when you have all these multiple agents. But the other thing this points out, which I hadn't thought of until I read about it, is that Google is the natural place where you might have the indices of agents. So what they did for page ranks, they could do for agents, right? They could be the massive index server of all agent capabilities. And because of the architecture of the A2A descriptions of what the agents do, that would be immensely indexable, And so I think this is an essential read for people to understand what I think is brilliant architectural strategy by our friends at Google. And she says, yes, A2A also has the client server architecture, absolutely, and can subsume, I would think, can subsume MCP and can interact with MCP now. And I think Google's very much downplaying. It's like, oh, yes, we'll compete, we'll collaborate with MCP and, we baloney. Google wants to dominate this space the way they've dominated others. So I'm arguing essential. What do you think here, Amanda?
Yeah, I can be talked into essential. I agree. I think it does a really good job of explaining things. I guess my only issue is with it is, typically the first thing we hear about is any kind of use case with anything, right? So I feel like there wasn't really any of that going on. But that really wasn't the point either. What was that? But I feel like, as that's consistently what I hear, is where the use cases and everything, that it didn't really go into much of that at all. That's my only hesitancy on saying something like this is essential without any kind of like example sort of use case walkthrough of some kind.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this whole thing may be way more bullish on Google. I was kind of bearish on Google because of Perplexity and other folks, for the first time really threatening their search dominance. But if they can dominate the agent world, by being the index, man, that's a big deal. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the like a lot of these things, it starts in like one big square and then starts segmenting and thing here. And I thought the conversation at the MIT summit that you and I had with the head of product at Glean was really good. I think from an enterprise leader, there's certainly, I think, an opportunity for Google to be the lead index of kind of B2C public agents. But I think the notion of within the enterprise, you don't want your agents going out to everything here. So they're going to be enterprise specific agents that are approved and maintained by IT. Are they going to be department specific? Or if any employee creates an agent, they can only use an approved subset that's within the company's security guidelines. But all that is nuanced to my recommendation of Essential with Kevin and everything else. This whole area is really, really moving fast. And 45 days ago, we weren't talking about MCP, A2A, and vibe coding, and now we've got an explosion of innovation and change. And I think I think this makes the waves for, I think the other thing for the AI leader, it just means over the next 12 to 18 months, the waves of innovation of AI agent application that works within the enterprise is going to continue to far exceed my existing incumbent vendors here. So this notion that, I want to just have Salesforce put a couple agents in and that'll meet my needs, versus looking at startups that'll be a native AI and native agent 12 to 18 months from now, I think you're going to see a profound difference in innovation.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I love the way Ashish puts it, which is MCP is side loading of an app. Yep. And A2A is an ecosystem play for sure. I mean, depending upon your opinion of Google, this is either, the Rebel Alliance is back or the Empire Strikes Back. And I think this is the Empire Strikes Back. I mean, what I think is interesting here is how Microsoft is not playing, right? And I think they're losing. I'd be curious to see what the conversations are like, from Microsoft over the next little bit, because they have an opening here with OpenAI and their own Copilot. But I don't see that. I still see them very much thinking like an applications company, not like an ecosystem company.
Well, John, keep going with that though. But why can't 2 months from now Microsoft have its own directory? So if when I build an agent, I have to decide which of the 3 or 4 directories I want to list it in. I want to list it in a Google one. I want to list it in a Microsoft one. Microsoft's going to have a subset of that. HubSpot's going to lot over there in their agent one.
Well, yeah, I absolutely. I just think that within companies, for me, the movement from my Microsoft architecture to Copilot is very much around my internal app stack and its capabilities. Where Google, I'm already with Google, I'm already thinking, where do I sit in the ecosystem with my advertising and with my, and so now as I, do the kind of stuff that, our friend Pete Blackshot talks about, where I want the answer engine, not the question engine, Google is starting to be well positioned there. And then when I think about who is managing SEO, and who's funding it and so forth, it really is it's at the interface of an organization and the market, and that's where these agents are going to sit. It's not just within the IT department.
Right.
So I think Google they're in the right budgets for this stuff, combination of IT and marketing. They're in the right processes at the interface of our internal information, our external information, and they also have the indices already from the websites, and one could imagine, taking A2A and just having, you could inspect the website and sort of say, how A2A ready are you and so forth. And they have by far the vast flow of customers are already in behavior already going there. It'd be hard for Microsoft to, pull that through with Bing.
And John, and keep riffing on that. And particularly in the B2C. So if we keep going, we had the search economy. Now we're in the answer economy. And 12 to 18 months from now, we're going to be in the task economy, particularly in the B2C. So find me the 3, the best, all the trivial examples we see out there on the B2C side. It just feels more natural. It's going to happen there, which is reinforcing your point on Google's strength on the B2C e-commerce side.
Yeah. And then, Kevin's saying they demonstrated strong agent strategy at Next last week. I agree. So I think this is the return, the dark, the Empire is back, baby. The Death Star lives, depending upon how you think about Google. This is really an interesting point here that Kevin makes. Ecosystem integration helps synchronize 3 life cycles: data pipelines, models, and applications. I think that's well said. Very, very well said, Kevin. Thank you. All right. So Akash, please give us the top board in a minute here. Paul, what do we have for any updates for Monday?
No, we missed last week's Learning Lab, and we currently have an open slot, but we are confirmed to have Learn Lab on Monday, and we will fill it in by then. But it's continue. One of the things I was really happy on. One of the panels I was moderating at the MIT conference was Joan from Boston Children's Hospital, and she mentioned how, and they call it also Learning Lab. Learning Lab is such a critical part of it, and it was interesting. The gentleman, and I forget his name. He had a vibe coding tool, and
Yes.
the number one reason that they find that for someone using their engineer uses their tool is that the engineer next to them uses it. So peer learning and peer influence as a critical aspect of change management for a tool, or even within a process automation with AI, is really captured in it. And we're doing a kind of a open source one, but I think it's a model that more and more companies should consider.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Paul, maybe we should have this whole conversation about MCP A2A and the ecosystem as Monday activity, because I think it's a rich conversation, and and one that, and I love the way you put it, that we're going from to agents to tasks, and that's going to be a big deal, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's Sheesh or Kevin. If either of you guys available, reach out to me. I'd love to have you guys. 7:00 on Monday, p.m.
All righty. Ankash, here we have the tote. We have two essentials, which are the reminding folks that LLM, don't get overcommitted to an LLM, and then MCV versus A to A. So that's great. In terms of essential for folks. And then, of course, mostly optionals, one important on Grok Studios, great newest contributor to the ecosystem. All right, with that, goodbye, everybody. Have a great weekend. See you all Monday. I think we are going to do the MCP A to A topic, and we'll get some of our friends to help enliven that conversation. All right, thanks, everybody, and have a great weekend.